The last dragon, carrying the last Targaryen queen, vanishes into the skies, leaving behind nothing but unanswered questions. And that's exactly why this moment is still debated today. Today, I'm going to break down the three most realistic and widely discussed theories about what Drogon did with Daenerys' body, theories that could completely change how you see this ending. Before we dive into them, let's talk about what the show actually tells us. In one of the final scenes, Samwell Tarly is in a council meeting when someone asks the obvious question: where is Drogon now? Sam reveals that the dragon was last spotted flying east toward Volantis, but there's another crucial moment that people often forget. When Bran Stark is asked about Drogon's location, he says something interesting. He says he'll try to find him, implying that even with his powers as the three-eyed raven, Drogon's whereabouts remain unclear. Think about that for a second. Bran can see across time and space. He watched the entire history of Westeros unfold, and yet even he can't simply pinpoint where this dragon went. That tells us something important. Wherever Drogon took Daenerys, it wasn't random. It had a purpose the show never explained. Now, before we get into the real theories, we need to address the elephant in the room, or rather the dragon in the room. Some people have suggested that Drogon simply ate Daenerys. I know, it sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but this theory gained enough traction that even the showrunners had to address it, and their response was pretty clear. That's not what happened. Here's why this theory falls apart when you actually think about it. First, dragons in Game of Thrones are not mindless beasts. They're incredibly intelligent creatures with deep emotional bonds to their riders. The books make this abundantly clear. Dragons and their riders share something almost telepathic. When a dragon rider dies, their dragon feels it. They mourn. Drogon's behavior in the throne room proves this. He doesn't rage blindly or attack everything in sight. He grieves. He nudges his mother's body like a dog trying to wake its owner. He cries out. And when he finally accepts what has happened, his anger is directed at the Iron Throne, not at random destruction. This is a creature experiencing loss, not hunger. Second, the way Drogon picks up Daenerys is incredibly gentle. If he intended to eat her, why would he carefully cradle her body in his claws? Why would he fly away with her instead of just doing it right there? And third, there's the direction he flew, east, toward Volantis. If Drogon just wanted to eat his mother's body, why fly thousands of miles to do it? He could have landed anywhere. No, Drogon took Daenerys somewhere specific, somewhere meaningful, and that's what makes this mystery so compelling. Theory 1. The resurrection. This is the most popular theory among fans, and honestly, it's the most exciting one. The idea is simple. Drogon didn't take Daenerys away to bury her. He took her somewhere she could be brought back to life. Now, if you're thinking that sounds impossible, I understand. But remember what world we're in. This is a universe where the dead have risen before, and not just as ice zombies. Beric Dondarrion was resurrected 6 times by Thoros of Myr, using the power of the Lord of Light. 6 times this man died, and 6 times he came back. Yes, with each death, he lost a part of himself. His memories faded, and his sense of purpose became narrower. But he was alive. And then there's Jon Snow himself, stabbed to death by his own brothers in the Night's Watch, left bleeding in the cold, and Melisandre brought him back. So resurrection isn't myth in this world, it's documented fact. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Drogon was last seen flying toward Volantis. This isn't some random city. Volantis is one of the oldest cities in the world, founded by the survivors of Valyria after the Doom, and more importantly, it's the centre of the Lord of Light religion. The Red Temple in Volantis is the largest temple to the Lord of Light in existence. It's where the Red priests and priestesses train. It's where the most powerful fire magic in the world is practiced. And here's the kicker. Do you remember Kinvara? In Season 6, this Red priestess came to Meereen specifically to meet with Daenerys. And what did she say? She told Tyrion and Varys that Daenerys was the one who was promised, the chosen champion of the Lord of Light. She believed Daenerys had a divine destiny connected to fire and blood. Kinvara didn't just support Daenerys politically, she believed Daenerys was part of prophecy. So the resurrection theory goes like this. Drogon, through grief or instinct or some kind of connection to the magic of the world, flies east. He carries his mother's body toward the only place where death might not be permanent, where fire magic is real, where people have been brought back before. Maybe Drogon doesn't understand resurrection in the way we do, but dragons are magical creatures. They were born from fire and blood. Maybe Drogon felt a pull toward Volantis. Maybe he understood on some level that fire could heal what fire had destroyed, and maybe, in some temple in Volantis, surrounded by flames and ancient magic, Daenerys Targaryen opened her eyes again. What resurrection would mean for Daenerys? Now, if this theory is true, we have to ask an important question. What would a resurrected Daenerys actually be like? Because resurrection in Game of Thrones isn't a clean process. It changes people. Beric Dondarrion himself said that each time he came back, he lost a piece of who he was. His memories of his wife, his home, his old life, they faded. He became more focused, more single-minded, almost hollow in some ways. Jon Snow came back different too. There's a reason he was so withdrawn after his resurrection. He'd seen what was on the other side, and it was nothing, just darkness. That experience haunted him. So a resurrected Daenerys might not be the same woman who died in that throne room. The guilt, the madness, the grief, maybe some of that would be burned away. Or maybe it would be amplified. Maybe she would come back even more obsessed with fire and blood. There's also another possibility. Maybe death would give her clarity. Maybe dying and coming back would strip away the worst parts of what she became in her final days. The fear, the cruelty, the strong desire for the throne. It's a compelling thought, a second chance for a character who arguably deserved one, or at least deserved more than the rushed ending she got. Theory 2. Return to Valyria. Before that, if you're enjoying the video so far, consider subscribing for more Game of Thrones breakdowns like this. The second major theory is less about magic and more about poetry. Some fans believe Drogon didn't take Daenerys anywhere to heal her. Instead, he took her home, not to Dragonstone, where she was born, not to Meereen, where she ruled, but to Valyria, the ancient homeland of the Targaryens and the birthplace of dragons themselves. To understand this, we need to look back at history. Valyria was once the most powerful civilization the world had ever seen. The Valyrian freehold ruled for thousands of years, built on the backs of dragons and the darkest blood magic ever practiced. They conquered half the known world, and then the doom came. In a single day, Valyria was destroyed. Volcanoes erupted, the earth split open, and the sea boiled. An entire civilization was wiped out in hours. To this day, no one knows exactly what caused the doom. Some say it was the blood magic finally turning on its masters. Some say the dragons themselves rebelled. Whatever happened, Valyria became a cursed ruin, shrouded in volcanic smoke and demon-haunted in legend. Only the Targaryens survived because they had left before the doom. They fled to Dragonstone, a small island at the edge of the world, and they waited. When the smoke cleared, they were the last dragon lords left alive. So if Drogon flew to Valyria, the symbolism is overwhelming. Think about it. The last dragon carrying the last Targaryen queen, returning to the ruins of their lost empire, not to conquer, not to rebuild, just to end where everything began. Daenerys spent her entire life trying to reclaim glory. She wanted to restore her family name, sit on the Iron Throne, and prove that the Targaryens still mattered. And in the end, she lost everything: the throne, her sanity, her life. But in this theory, Drogon gives her something no one else could: a return to origins, a final rest among the bones of her ancestors, in the land where dragons were born. There's something deeply sad about this interpretation, but also something beautiful. The Targaryen story ends where it started: fire returning to fire, dragon returning to dragon. Theory 3. A dragon's farewell. The third theory is the most emotional one, and in some ways the most realistic. This theory suggests that Drogon didn't have a grand plan. He wasn't seeking magic or destiny, he was simply grieving. Dragons in Game of Thrones are portrayed as some of the most intelligent creatures in existence. They understand language, they recognize their riders, they form bonds that go beyond simple animal loyalty. When Daenerys died, Drogon lost everything. She was his mother, literally in a sense, since she brought him into the world by walking into fire. She was his constant companion for years. She was the one person who understood him. When Drogon picked up her body and flew away, maybe he was doing what any grieving being would do, taking her somewhere safe, far from those who hurt her, somewhere only he could reach. In this version of events, Drogon eventually finds a quiet place, a mountain, a distant island, an untouched corner of the world, and he gives her a funeral befitting a dragon lord. Now the final question, so I'll leave you with this. If you could write the ending, what would you choose?